Hi guys, this is the Coach Podcast number 3. Today I have a guy that I admire a lot, Daniel Smee from Newcastle. New head coach from University of Charleston. He played for Wesleyan. He's gonna tell a lot of things, but before I start, I just wanna say one thing that can show how much I respect Smee. When we knew each other, but we were not friends yet, I say we know each other. We both were taking the D license for United Soccer Federation. And he didn't know me, but he let me stay at his house, and that saved me a lot of money on gas and saved me 3 hours every day we were going to the back course. And from that day on, I already knew he was a nice guy. So I always want to bring you and Kim how much you guys helped me in my time in Charleston. This was a quick introduction. I don't know if you can now introduce yourself for everybody that's going to watch the podcast.
Yeah, no problem. I appreciate that, Rafa. Daniel Smee, head coach, University of Charleston, originally from England, been in America about 11 years now. Went home for about 6 months in between. I kind of got forced to go home, but really enjoying my time here in West Virginia. Rafa, I know you enjoyed your time at UC and then at Marshall as well. And obviously you're not too far away, but I appreciate you inviting me on, and I'm sure we're going to have a good time in the next hour.
Yeah, I want to start just in Newcastle, how you start playing soccer, and just telling your story, how you start with soccer.
Yeah, just typical English child. Just started kicking around the streets with friends at a very early age. I'm sure sort of 6, 7. Got on my first competitive team. It's just a local club team, and just really just enjoyed it. Obviously, playing every day at school, every time you get a break, just going out and playing soccer, playing football, and just playing as much as you could. By the time I was in high school, sort of 11, 12, 13, 14, I was playing 3, 4 different teams: club, school, county team, which is like the region, the state, and then just playing as much as I could. You know how it is. I know it was the same back in Brazil. A little different to the culture here in America, but it was really hard it was actually harder probably to not play soccer than it was to play soccer in England.
Yeah. Jumping from that, how you end up at Gretna FC playing the Scottish League in 2006 to 2008?
Yeah, Gretna's probably about an hour and 15 minutes from Newcastle. So Newcastle's obviously very north of England, and Gretna's on the southern border of Scotland. So really just an hour drive. So it's quite a local club. They were bought out by a guy who had a lot of money, and they were in one of the lower leagues, and they just kept winning the leagues because they were buying the best players really. But when I signed, they were in sort of what would be League One in England, so the third tier. Obviously, it was in Scotland, but it was like the third tier. I'd already signed my contract coming out of high school, aged 15, to go there when I was 16. And they got promoted from League One into the Championship that year. So my first year playing was them as a Championship club. And then the second year I was there, they were a Scottish Premier League club. I was only 16, 17 when I was there on sort of scholarship forms in England and, well, in the UK. It's what you do when you come out of high school or you're in high school. It's what you sign, and just making sort of £55, £75 per week, not a lot of money. But getting to train with professionals in the first team and in the reserve teams. And obviously, I was the majority of the time I was in the U19 team, which was a massive learning experience, and I enjoyed it a lot.
How you do with the pressure? Just this question because I was talking to Ali Simoes, and he told me in the academy he got to a point that he was so nervous to get the ball that he would hide so he didn't get yelled at. So when you go to a club that has this pressure and high performance, how you think you were in the psychology? You think you deal well? You think your coach supportive you? You think at the time the pressure was a lot?
Yeah, and I'm sure you know what it's like, Rafa. When you're younger, when you're sort of 16, 17, and even younger than that, you probably don't think too much about, well, when I was younger anyway, we didn't really think too much about the psychological side of it. It was more you just went out to play, and if you didn't have a good day, you knew you didn't have a good day. But I don't remember really ever thinking I'm really nervous to go and play with these players. But I do, looking back, know that I was. I think when you get older, and especially when you go into the coaching world instead of the playing world, you do think about the psychological part of the game a lot more. And that's obviously what I do nowadays with the players that we coach. We think about that part of the game. Back then, I would know I would have a bad day or a good day at the end of it, or during the session. As you know, as a player, it's fairly obvious you know how you're doing. But I don't remember ever being like really nervous. But I definitely didn't play as well as I probably could have throughout the 2 years I was there. I did do well at times, and then you'd obviously have those days where you just felt like you just weren't meant to be there.
Good answer. And what happened between there and until you go to the United States? So I just want you to tell me what happened once you leave Gretna, and how you end up going to West Virginia Wesleyan.
Yeah, so I actually left Gretna. The club, the owner who was discussed before, who had all the money, passed away. Which was a big issue for the club. Basically meant they had no one to fund the club, no one with any money to back it. And we didn't have anything of value really apart from the team. So the stadium they played in was a very small stadium, so the club couldn't sell that. We used to practice at a university, so we didn't have our own practice facility. So when he passed away, the club was looking for potential buyers to replace him, and no one wanted to buy it because we were just hemorrhaging money. Before my 18th birthday, we were sent home because we weren't able to train since the club hadn't paid their bills, which was strange. And I just remember the next day, one of my good friends called me and said, "How are you feeling? Are you sad?" And I had no idea what he was talking about. And he told me to turn on Sky Sports, which is the sports TV channel back in the UK. And there was a big announcement on Sky Sports that had like breaking news. They have breaking news that run along the bottom. And it basically was saying that the club was going to finish the season in the Premier League with the first team and a couple of additional younger players. I think they kept a squad of 22, but they got rid of everyone else. And we probably had 45, 50 players in the club. So along the bottom of the screen was a list of players that were getting released, and my name was on the list. So I didn't find out from the club. I found out from a TV channel, which was interesting. But then, that was about, I think, late March of 2008, just before my 18th birthday. And then I took a year out. I went to college/university in England and didn't do very well in class. Was probably really bad. Never really went to class. Was enjoying my time with my friends a little bit too much, which I'm sure you know a lot about. And then sort of just before my 19th birthday, so a year later, one of my good friends had committed to Wesleyan, and I just thought I'll give it a go. And I ended up at very short notice. Wesleyan gambled a little bit on me and offered me a good scholarship, and I just thought, yeah, I'll go there.
That's cool. That's cool. And how was for you the difference from playing in England and when you arrived to college soccer? What you can say was the difference in the games, or how was your adaptation?
Coming from Newcastle in the UK, this probably wasn't an issue for you, but I know when I first came, just realising how hot it was, the temperature and the weather, quite difficult for me to get used to. I have what I call ginger skin, which is skin that just burns very easily in the sun. So I had to make sure I was applying sunscreen a lot. But just the temperature in general, you know how it is down here in sort of middle of West Virginia with all the mountains, it can get very humid quite quickly. So being able to breathe and things like that were originally quite difficult when I was playing. And then just little things with the rules. I felt like the referees were not as good in the US when I first came over, and I also felt the substitution rule was quite difficult to get your head around. Coming out when you can come back in, in England, in the UK, and pretty much everywhere outside of America, I know. When you get substituted, especially in the first half, it means you probably aren't playing great. But in America, that quite often means that you're just getting a little break and then you're going to go back in at some point.
Right.
So those are the main differences for me, I think.
No, yeah, that's a good point. I think you covered it all. Um, Talking about what you said, I feel when I come here, I just feel the difference of how much you defend, how much you run.
Mm.
Run way more in Brazil and less, so I got adapted. Was a big difference for me about that. So then you have a great senior year there. You played 19 games, you start all, you got 7 goals, you got 15 assists, that you were the lead assistant in the country. You got second All American, first All American, might be wrong. You got All American. So um, you think you develop into a system there, or you think you change as a player in Wesleyan, and why the senior year was that good?
Um, it's a really good question, Rafa. Personally, looking back and at the time, I'm not sure I was a better player by my senior year, to be honest. The first year I went to Wesleyan, I didn't know going there, but about a month in, I found out I was going to be ineligible for the whole season. So I actually lost my whole freshman year. I wasn't allowed to play. So there was many times I thought about just going back to England. I thought, well, if I'm not playing, why am I here? Because really that's the reason I came over to play in a nice lifestyle. But luckily for me, one of my good friends and turned out to be, he's going to be my best man in my wedding next year. He was also ineligible, so he also lost a year. So we spent a lot of time together. We'd go and watch the home games. We'd have a few beers together watching the games. And he helped me a lot, and I'm sure I helped him a lot for the freshman, the whole freshman year, even though we weren't playing. And then sophomore year, I was voted captain, which was great. We had a really good season that year. We actually beat the school that I'm at now and that you played at, Charleston, in the Sweet 16, which was a big deal. We made the Elite Eight. First time in the school's history they'd made it within the NCAA. They used to do very well as an NAIA school, but that was the first time they'd made it that far as NCAA school. So as a player, first year actually playing games, I was very upbeat, very excited for what was to come because we'd done so well that season. And I thought junior and senior years were just going to continue on an upward trajectory where we were going to do just as good or better. Junior year, I actually was in and out of the team quite often with an injury that just wouldn't seem to go away. We had a very good team that year as well, I thought, but we had myself and a couple of other sort of quality players that were sort of in and out of the team with injuries and suspension. So we had a good season, but not a great season my junior year. And then senior year, you know how it is. It just seems to mean more by the time you get to that point. I think it's your last year and your last opportunity to play in college, and could potentially be the last competitive season you ever play if you're sort of trending towards leaving the sport of playing it at least. So I don't know whether you try harder or the stats maybe mean a little bit more in your senior year, but I know my senior year, once I started to get quite a lot of assists, sort of towards the middle part of the season, I was quite big into, all right, I got to get an assist this game. Like I wanted to be very good on the assist chart. In the sophomore and junior years, I felt like my statistics were probably not as good, but probably better than the stats show. I think back then statistics weren't that big of a deal. Like if someone scored a goal and you weren't given the assist, even though you probably had the assist, I didn't complain. I didn't go and get it added. It was just a goal that didn't have an assist. Whereas my senior year, if that happened, the goal was scored and I crossed it and someone headed it and they just said it was like an unassisted goal, I'd be first one on the phone saying, yeah, we gotta get the assist in there. So yeah, I think senior year it feels like it means a little bit more, just mainly because it's your last year and you wanna go out with a bang.
Oh yeah, I agree with you totally. And after that, what was in your thoughts once you finish your college career as a player, and you knew you would be a coach, or how you make that switch? How it happened?
No, definitely didn't know I was going to be a coach, Raf. I wanted to play originally. So when my senior season finished in November of 2012, I wanted to use my spring semester in the spring of 13 to continue to practice with the team, to stay in shape, and then to potentially look at playing opportunities when I finished. Um, as soon as the spring semester started, I spoke to the coach and asked if that would be okay, and he said yes, no problem. And then the spring semester started, and I just started going out like 3, 4, 5 nights a week, just really enjoying the social part of the collegiate experience, which you don't really get an opportunity to enjoy too much when you're playing in season. And then all of a sudden, I just wasn't training. I was going out drinking, I was doing class, and then I was just drinking at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, playing FIFA. Just you know how it is.
I know.
And I think that kind of made my decision for me when it came to the potential opportunities to continue playing in the United States, in America. I had committed to playing in the PDL that summer, in the summer of 13, in Charleston actually for Peta. He was the coach. I know you know Peta quite well. So I was just trying to get through the spring semester, enjoy some downtime, and then I was going to go play that summer and just see what happened. I played in the summer, enjoyed it, didn't do great, did okay. And then I was just applying for all GA positions. I like the idea of trying to stay in America and potentially coaching, potentially getting a master's. So I just applied for everything over that spring semester and in the summer. And then very late in the summer, I got the call from the head coach at Slippery Rock, who'd actually the number one choice for the position had pulled out. He'd got a job, a full-time job somewhere else in America. So he pulled out of the we had a quick 15-minute phone call while I was in Charleston for the summer, and that was it. He offered me the job in July, and I was up there in August to start.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was crazy. I was actually in Taco Bell in Charleston on the toilet. I was sitting on the toilet when they called me. Yeah, it was interesting one.
The way you receive news is funny. I can tell by your timeline.
Crazy.
And now I have been for a GA here, and once you're a player, you don't understand when you go to a restaurant and the food's on the table. You don't understand. You go to the bus, you go to the locker room, everything is done. You go to the practice. When you go to the player, you just think and play, and you don't think about. And when I come to GA Ohio, I start doing hotel, food, logistics, everything. So I would make sure with the restaurant, get the orders before, and all those logistics. I don't know what was your job duties, but I did everything besides soccer here almost. And I was like, man, GA is a tough one, but I learned a lot. How was for you the GA? How was for you mainly for the age, because you're coaching with men? So how would the players see you, and how was to learn in Slippery Rock from 13, 14, so 2 seasons there?
Yeah, it's a good question, Raf. Very similar to your experience, I think. I think the difference between myself and you was I was the only assistant. I know there's another assistant or two maybe with you in Ohio. For me, it was just the head coach and then one graduate assistant, which was myself. And the head coach was very into the coaching, but he was also very strict and very, what I would say, military in the things that you mentioned. So the planning of travel, the logistics, making sure everything looks right and everything operates right. So I was involved quite heavily in that, and he had very high standards. So it was important that I did it right. You know, it was important that we were spot on all of the time. I remember once, quite early, he used to like to put the travel itinerary on a document and stick the itinerary on the locker room door, so the guys could see, okay, we're traveling tomorrow. This is when we're leaving. This is when we'll stop to eat. This is when we'll be back. All those things. And I remember, I think something crazy like I was writing the title, and it would have to be bold and underlined. And I think I forgot to bold one of the titles. I only underlined it, and it was like one of like 4 or 5 titles on the document, and only one of them wasn't bolded. And he ripped me a new arsehole. He was just like, it needs to be, go back and change it. And all the lads had already seen it. So I felt like saying, why would I change it? They've already read it and no one's even noticed. But he made me go upstairs and reprint it and all that. So very strict, very military. But like you, Raf, I think it was an experience just coming out of college, age 23, 24, to learn a lot about how the collegiate experience works as a coach in America. And then obviously how the actual coaching runs and how sessions can run from a coaching's perspective. Because like you say, as a player, you don't really think about that too much. I know when I was a player and we would get travel and food and all those things, you never think, I wonder how much of a problem that was to get it. But it can be quite difficult sometimes.
Oh yeah, no, it's crazy. But I think we learned. Like I said, I'm glad that I've been director of ops, volunteer, GA. Hopefully, after I finish my master, I can get assistant coach. But I feel I've been for all the positions I could have been. So you feel.
Yeah, you kind of moved up the ladder a little bit.
After that, you go for assistant coach at Lee's McRae, if I say right.
Yeah.
But as assistant coach, what do you think? Of course, the environment can be totally different, but what do you think was the transition and how was your coaching experience at Lee's McRae? Right?
Yeah, no, that's right, Raf. That's right. Yeah, that was another sort of strange one that came up almost out of nothing. I remember I was at Slippery Rock for 2 seasons, like you said. I was there sort of the fall of 13, the spring and the fall of 14. The head coach that we were just talking about was there in the first semester. Then he took a new job in January. So I'm not sure if you know this, but I was like the only coach for the spring
interim
semester.
head coach.
Yeah, I was like the interim head coach, but I was on my own. So we didn't have any assistant, and I'd only been out of college 6 months. So that was a big team. Actually, was great about it. A lot of them were similar in age to me. Obviously, I was only 24, 23 actually at the time, and we had players in the team that were 23. But they were great. They were very mature. Obviously, it's the spring, so it's not as intense. But I learned a lot that semester. And then I had a new head coach for the fall. We didn't do as well as the first semester, but we still did very well. And then I moved on in December. I graduated that December. And then that spring, after I graduated, I moved to Charleston and I coached at Quantum Sports Center, which I know you know. I did about 6-7 months at Quantum, coaching kids, running the bar, recruiting kids to classes and things like that. Enjoyed it originally, and then I've realized that I wanted to get back into college. And that summer of 15, I played for the Chaos PDL team again, and they had a new coach and a new assistant. The new assistant was called Rich Wall, and he'd just been hired as the head coach at Lees McRae. And he didn't have any assistant. He was looking for a full-time assistant to help him. And over that summer, we became quite close, and I expressed an interest in getting back into college. And he basically just offered me the job there at Lees McRae that summer. So I started there in the fall of 15, did that semester there as the full-time assistant. So I was back to getting paid a little bit of money there on my OPT visa. But obviously, the OPT visa only lasts 1 year. So for me, that was always a sort of temporary thing, just because the visa situation is so volatile. Lees McRae actually offered to take care of trying to get an H-1B visa, which is more lucrative, more of a 3-year visa. But towards the end of my OPT visa in February of 16, my old school, West Virginia Wesleyan, offered me the opportunity to do the same thing there, be the full-time assistant and get an H-1B visa. So for me, it was a bit of a no-brainer, kind of going back to where I played. I'd always wanted to do that and see if I could help move the program to the next level. So that's actually why I left Lees McRae. Through no fault of Lees McRae, they were great. I've got nothing but good things to say about Rich, the head coach, and the athletic director, who's a great guy as well. But I learned a lot from Rich. I had a lot more of an input on the field than I did at Slippery Rock, probably, especially in my first year at Slippery Rock. But at Lees McRae, I was very sort of hands-on and involved, and learned a lot about a new conference and some very good players. Pfeiffer were in that conference. I'm sure you remember Pfeiffer in 2015. They won the national championship, and they were they were in our conference and they were very good. So you're learning obviously how to play against really good teams like that.
Really good. Now, this story I don't know, Presley, so it's good that we're doing the podcast. So, how was your time in Wesleyan and how you end up going to UC? And then, of course, I know the story after UC.
Yeah.
How you end up, how was this transition there?
Yeah, I've had a very strange life, Rafa. So obviously, like I said, Wesleyan offered to take care of my visa. It was a great opportunity for me as a full-time assistant. I knew the head coach had been there for a long time. He'd expressed to me that he was potentially looking to move on in the next couple of years, and if I did well, he would want me to be the head coach. So that was something that really interested me. I didn't go to Wesleyan until August, so I moved back to Charleston in March of that year. I was with my girlfriend at the time, Kimmy, so I was hanging out with Kimmy, doing some club coaching, and doing some private sessions just to try and keep myself ticking over and stay in the coaching world. And continue to practice. Went to Wesleyan in August for pre-season. Still waiting for the visa at this point, going through the process with the lawyers and the attorneys to try and get that visa completed. And just went through the whole season as a volunteer. So they weren't able to pay me or anything, but they obviously had the promise to be the full-time assistant when I got the visa. And then we did well. We had a good season. It was an improvement on the year before. We actually lost in the conference semi-final to UC after going 1-0 up. So it was almost an upset, but UC came back and played really well and beat us that day. But it was a good sign for what I thought was things to come. We'd had an improvement on the season before, some really good players in the team, some really good players coming back the following year in 17. So I was excited. And then found out in November that my visa application for the H-1B was rejected, and to leave the country in 30 days or get married to Kimmy, who I'd only been with for probably a year at that point. So we discussed it and we decided it's probably best for me to go home and see what opportunities were there and see if we could continue our relationship that way. So I went home in November, December time of 16. And I was home looking for work, looking for coaching jobs. Really difficult to find in England. A lot of the jobs are volunteer positions. And if you do get a coaching job, it's quite often not much money, not enough to live on, to be honest.
Same in Brazil.
Yeah, it's real difficult. So I was home for about 6 months, 7 months, and then Strat's head coach at UC called me and said there was going to be a GA position available in the fall and asked if I wanted to take it. Obviously ran it by Kimmy and a bunch of family members and things. I spoke with the Wesleyan team to make sure they wouldn't hate me. And then obviously for me, it was a bit of a no-brainer. It was an opportunity to get back into America and it was coming with the best team in Division 2. So I came back and obviously been at UC ever since, which was the fall of 17. So about 2.5 years now.
That's crazy. I didn't know that. You always get adversity, but you always find a way to. I mean, I don't know if your patience is what you do, but I need that advice.
It can be hard, Rafa. I'm telling you, it can be hard at times. But I think you're a very positive person as well. I think you just got to stay and look at the positives at all times. Obviously, there's many people in this world who are way worse off than us. No matter what situation we're in. So I just try to look at the positive and stay positive and just wait for the right opportunity. And luckily for me, it came up.
And that's something that when I was a player, I didn't used to think about a lot of things. But once I knew I want to be a coach and I get the opportunity to get my master's in coaching, I start to apply your theories and understand things in a different perspective. I think my opinion, can be wrong. I think you're an athlete-centered coach and you use a lot of positive feedback. And in the end, as a player, you feel your confidence go up because you feel the coaches give you ownership or he cares about you. And you always encourage. Like, I think the core values that you see create a positive environment when even if you do a mistake, people go to you and they're not going to point the finger to you. Say, let's go to the next one and bring you positive. Have you ever, are you an athlete center coach, and you think you reinforce positive feedback and all these things? Because that's my perspective when you coach me. I used to feel close to you. You feel close, like as a friendship with the coach, not like in cases in Brazil where I have the head coach being very like, head coach is here, players are here, you do what you told, and it was hierarchy basically. But I think you dilute power a lot. So I don't know. I want you to tell me how you see you as yourself as a coach.
No, I agree, Rafa. I think for me, it's always been a case of building those relationships with the players. I know there's a lot in the media, and you read a lot now in books and on podcasts about modern coaching is trying to connect with the player and being a friend more than a coach at times. For me, that actually came quite natural. I think maybe because, like we talked about earlier, I was kind of thrown into the deep end at Slippery Rock a little bit as the only assistant straight out of college, and then as the interim head coach on my own. Kind of, I had those relationships with the players already because we were friends, and I'd been the same age as them, and I just came out of college. And then for me, it just kind of came naturally as I got older, just trying to really have the players trust you and recognize, hopefully, that you care about them. And for me, I do care, you know. I think I do try and keep in contact with players who've graduated from colleges that I've coached in the past. I think I have a good relationship with a lot of players from all of the colleges I've coached at. If I can help them at times in their adult life, I will. I like to think I've made them better people, firstly, for the most part. That's the main part of coaching, right? You want to win, definitely, 100%, and at UC we do win. But at the end of the day, the player needs to become a good person, or stay a good person, or become a better person. And then hopefully you can make them a better player as well. And if they are going to go and play professionally, then help them in some way do that.
Yeah. Last question, and then we can wrap it up. How you feel now coming with this winning culture on UC? How you feel with these new challenges? And if you think you are ready to get the 30th conference tournament, because I know you have 29. So how is this new challenge, and how you're seeing, how you're dealing with that?
I'm enjoying it. Obviously, the coronavirus has made it interesting. I'd only been the head coach for about 6 weeks, and then all the students were asked to leave campus. Our spring season was cut short. We weren't able to play any games. I wasn't able to. Hopefully, would have got a first win as a head coach in the spring games. So I just have to wait a little bit longer for that. But definitely enjoying it. We've got a very good program here. Hopefully, I can just continue the trend that Chad and then Chris and then Strats created. There's not much that needs changed. There's not much that needs altered at all. So it's just a case of continuing what we have, maybe making some minor changes here and there. We've got some very good players coming back from last season. We obviously just won the national championship. So if we can repeat that, then great. That's the aim. We've added some good players to the good players that are coming back. Just really important at the minute, I think, with the summer semester, that we're trying to stay in touch with players and make sure they're doing everything they can to be ready for the fall. Everything I'm hearing right now, as it stands in June 1, when we're recording this, is that our fall season is going to go ahead with maybe a slight delay or less games, but we just want to be playing. Student athletes mainly believe in the athlete portion. While they do their schoolwork and they do the student portion, the athlete part is arguably more important to them. So they want to play. I'm glad we're, touch wood, hopefully going to be playing. And I'm looking forward to the challenge, and I think the players are as well.
Yeah, I appreciate your time. I don't know if you can see, but I wear my UC shirt here. I wish you all the best. Is me. For me, it's a guy that I have a lot of respect, and I'm grateful for everything you did for me, mainly on the things as the license that you helped me big time. And I wish you nothing but the best on this season, and fly high, Golden Eagles.
Thanks, Rafa. Appreciate your time, my friend.